Welcome to The Currency of Grief, the podcast where we confront two of society's most taboo topics, death and money. My name is Justin Weidenfeld, and I'm here to serve as your grief financial officer, guiding you through the complex and emotional journey of what happens when money and mortality collide. Whether you're navigating the aftermath of losing a loved one, looking for practical advice on handling pre- and post-death planning, or simply just wanting to start those hard conversations about legacy while you still can, this space is for you. Together, we'll hear real-life stories from real-life people who have navigated the intersection of grief and money and come out the other side. Our guests will share their stories, practical insights, valuable advice, and moments of clarity so that none of you have to navigate this alone. I'm grateful you've decided to join us on this journey. Now let's dive in. So without further ado, let's meet our guests for today's podcast. Ret Taylor is a transformational coach and facilitator of vision quests and modern rites of passage. After 2 decades as an entrepreneur building purpose-driven companies around the world, Ret found himself accomplished but disconnected. Seeking clarity, he went to the mountains, asked the big questions, and discovered his true work, guiding others through profound transitions towards purpose and wholeness. Ret helps high-performing founders, leaders, and athletes reconnect with their truth, refine their focus, rise to their highest potential. His work bridges ancient practice and modern psychology, creating immersive experiences in nature that restore clarity, courage, and authenticity. He lives in the mountains above Boulder, Colorado, with his wife, daughter, and their dog Bella, who's quite certainly in charge there. Right. Thank you so much for joining me on The Currency of Grief.
Yeah, Justin, thanks for having me. It's an important topic. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, so we had a conversation a while ago, nice kind introduction from Brian Dubois, another friend of the podcast. So when I told you about what I was creating with The Currency of Grief, what made you want to come on the podcast?
Yeah, well, I think talking about death is really important. And I learned that the hard way when my mom passed about 5 years ago. And we didn't get a chance to talk. And it's a regret. And I spent the next several years evangelizing, talking to anybody I could about the importance of talking and doing it before it's too late. Not only when people get sick, but before, way before. And those conversations are really right and true and natural. And for some reason, we have this fear around it. I mean, not for some reason. It's it's very clear why that fear exists. But it's important to overcome that fear and to really have those deep conversations.
Definitely. And just from reading your intro, I can feel there's, so much correlation between grief and the work that you do on the Vision Quest and helping people, guiding people who have experienced all sorts of different things from all over the world towards purpose and wholeness. I mean, that's rich and wholesome.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Justin. There's 3 phases in the Vision Quest. And the first phase is the severance. And that's really a death phase. And it's a killing off of the things that are no longer serving us. And we do a death lodge, which could be a fire where you write down those habits or beliefs, those elements of your life that are no longer serving you. Maybe they served you in your 20s or 30s, but they're not serving you any longer. And we sever ourselves from those. And maybe we write those down and with a lot of intention, we throw those in the fire and we burn those. And then we bury the fire. And, death is part of life, cliche as it is, but a lot of us forget that. And it feels like it's important to say that. And we evolved in the teepee or the hut or as nomads, and we saw a lot of life and we saw a lot of death. And when my mom Wynn was passing, my daughter was 7 years old, and when it came time for my mom to go to hospice, um, my immediate thought was, and just it all happened pretty fast.
Yeah,
But my
tell us
immediate
the
thought was,
story. Tell us the
sure.
story of like leading up to your mom's passing, and I don't mean to cut you
Mm,
off, but yeah, leading up to your mom's passing, and
mm.
what your relationship was with her.
Oh, it was so beautiful. She was just the best mom ever. She was such a sweet woman and just cared so much about my sisters and I. At the same time, she cared about so many other people as well. She was a peace negotiator with Harvard, and she traveled around the world to places with conflict and helped people come back together. Um, she was between jobs, and she decided she was at 65 or so going to go walk, or 66, going to go walk the Camino de Santiago, the pilgrimage in northern Spain. And we were very excited. She was always an endurance athlete and loved running. And she was a huge walker. She walked 7, 8, 10 miles per day. Never really owned a car, and just a big walker. Um, but we sent her off to go to walk the Camino, and she was going to check in on my sister, who lives in Ireland, and spend some time with her before hitting the Camino. And she arrived there, and she just wasn't feeling well. Um, and then it just continued to get worse over that week, and she realized she didn't have the energy to go walk. I think it's 600 miles.
Same.
And yeah, right. But that was big for her because she was a woman who she she did everything, and she did it all with a smile. Um, like she was a very um, her tolerance for pain and suffering was high, and that's I don't know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, but she came home back to my place. She was living with us just temporarily between work. We were really thrilled to have her here in Boulder, Colorado, and she got sick, and we went to the doctor, or we went to the emergency room, and the emergency physician took literally one look at her and said, "You have cancer." And I thought to myself, how the hell could you make that diagnosis with just a look? And I was so angry, and I'm getting angry in my body just thinking about it right now. He was 100% right, though. And he has spent a career knowing what that looks like. And she did have cancer, and she had the worst kind, in my opinion, colorectal cancer. And but they caught it early. She'd already had breast cancer and beaten that, and it was stage 2, and we thought, okay, beat that one too. And she lived with us for a year and a half while she got chemo and treatment. Um, but the chemo really wore her down, and she needed to have surgery afterward. And she wasn't fit enough to. She was always very thin. Um, she just wasn't fit enough to have surgery, and so the surgery got postponed. And then um, she had a tumor, and the tumor was bleeding, and then she had a stroke in my house, and I got a call from my wife that something was wrong, and I had to come home, and we had to call an ambulance, and she was taken to the hospital. Um, The problem with, the stroke wasn't terrible, um, but the medication, it thins the blood, and it was a catch-22. So with her tumor that was bleeding, the stroke medication would make that continue to bleed. And so, um, so, back up just a little while before that, we had been talking about which races we were going to run when she got better after her surgery. And we were looking at some turkey trots on Thanksgiving. And it was all just stage two cancer, very beatable, just like before. And we never had the conversation about anything that she would want. Um, and with that stroke, she lost her ability to speak. And she was with us for 12 days after the stroke. I think it was about 7 days, maybe 6 days, 7 or 8 days, that she was at the hospital, and she couldn't speak. And it was just, terrible time in my life. Um, I felt like she wasn't getting good treatment. And at one point, I called all of the doctors and nurses and really everyone who was on her team, which didn't feel like much of a team at the time to me. I called everybody into the room, and I told everyone who this person, this human being is in this bed. This is a mother of three who raised three amazing children who have all gone on to be very successful by herself while getting a PhD at Harvard. This is a woman who has helped in Israel and Palestine, Northern Ireland, and Kashmir, and around the world. And I made this speech to humanize her. And I know that it had an impact on the majority of people in that room that day. But it took that. And it took somebody having a voice for her after she'd lost her voice. And I'll never forget, she smiled at me from the bed. And it was a good and proud moment for me. But nonetheless, we lost her. She came home, and we had her home for about 5 days. And, back to the point I was going to make earlier, when we knew that she was coming home, or when we knew that she was going into hospice, that was incredibly difficult to accept. But once we did, I started thinking and looking on Airbnb. My daughter's 7. I don't know that I want to expose her to this. I started looking for homes to rent. And I thought this will be the place where my mom spends her last few days. We knew it wasn't going to be months or even weeks. And then I spoke with one of the amazing hospice workers, who, in my experience, every single hospice worker is amazing. And she really helped me remember that, yes, we evolved in teepees and huts, and children were born there, and grandparents passed there. And this was natural, and this was the way we evolved. And it's the way I've always lived my life, through ancestral practices and really sort of a primal approach to everything. How did we evolve? And it was a really great reminder that, yes, this is natural. And my mom came home to be with us in the home she'd lived in for the last 2 years. And my daughter was there, and it was very healthy. We didn't shield my 7-year-old daughter from anything. And because of that, my daughter has a deeper appreciation and an understanding for what that looks like. I'm really grateful she has that. It was a gift my mom gave to her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that story. I could tell the emotion behind it every time you talk about your mom, the high and the proudness and the smile that it brings to your face. And I was smiling as well. And then, when you talk about some of the hurdles, not getting to talk and not understanding what she wanted, and, um, the treatment that you, you know, would have wanted but weren't getting. And then, I'm just imagining you making like a miracle speech in the hospital, everybody like, um, bringing the team together, which is the type of person you are based on the work you do, is bringing people together and realizing their true power and purpose. Um, let's talk about the first one. So, what were the conversations that you wish you would have had that you didn't get to?
Yeah. Well, so many, um, of course. But
Maybe your
when
top
it
two
comes,
or three.
yeah, I'm sure. When my mom passed, all I wanted to do was what she wanted me to do. But I didn't know what that was. I didn't know whether she wanted to be cremated or buried. I didn't know if she was Catholic, and I didn't know how close to the Catholic faith she wanted everything to be. And I didn't know if she had money here or there or anywhere. Um, I didn't know anything about her last wishes. Again, it was supposed to be curable. We were going to run a race in 2 months, a turkey trot, and then all of a sudden it wasn't, and she couldn't speak, and so it was incredibly difficult. And what would I have liked to have spoken with her about? A million things, but just logistically, what do you want, Mama? I'm here to do it, because when somebody passes, all you want to do is fulfill their wishes. And it's very frustrating not knowing what those wishes are.
Yeah. Hence, one of the main reasons we started Currency of Grief.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's why I love what you're doing. I'm a tremendous advocate. I hope everyone in the world hears this. And I hope that they go and they have those conversations with anyone they love, not just their elderly parents who are already looking at death, but their spouse, and they share with their children what their wishes are. Life is fragile, and we never know.
Speaking of advocating, um, feeling like you're not getting the right treatment from medical professionals, I know you're not alone in that sentiment. So, if you were to give, your perspective or some type of advice, it sounds like you were able to, humanize your mom and motivate someone to protect and care for this human who you love. um, how would you navigate that situation?
Yeah. Like I said, I think most people in that room, when I called the team together, I think most people got it, and they looked at her in a different way. And I get it. This is your job. You've done it for 20 years. You've seen thousands and thousands of people come and go. You have 17 other patients. Um, but it did feel very important to me to make sure that everyone knew just how special. I mean, we're all special, but I wanted my mom to be special in their eyes, and I made an impassioned speech, um, and it came out of nowhere. It came out of love and heart and frustration and fear that she wasn't. She was gonna. They were gonna miss something. And they did miss something, and they gave her a medication that she was allergic to. And it actually, as an entrepreneur, it made me really want to start a business that I'm going to give this this idea to whoever this is for, because it's not for me at this point in my life. But start a business where you're hiring retired nurses and doctors to be advocates for patients and look at their charts and be there. And I would have paid anything to have had somebody on her team that was there for her as her advocate. So I hope somebody goes and runs with that one.
Definitely.
But
$1 billion idea.
I think so, unfortunately. It's not my calling. Um, but but I would have loved to have had a service like that. And unfortunately, I think it's necessary. And if you can't hire a professional advocate, then you need to advocate and you need to keep an eye on things.
And it sounds like you had to advocate for your mom, and seeing her in that state probably brought up a lot of different emotions, including anger, which is one that you mentioned earlier. So how did you process your grief? What felt right for you? And was there a moment where everything shifted in your mindset?
Yeah, yeah, it did. Uh, yeah. Well, I cried. I cried as much as I could, um, knowing that that is how we let go of emotions. It's how we release. It's a natural human function, and in fact, it's unnatural not to cry. So I cried as much as I possibly could. Crying ended in about a week, and actually, yeah, I mean, I process it in a lot of ways, Justin. I'll go back to. I also showed up at work at my company, which I've since sold. I showed up. My mom passed on a Friday evening at 7:03 p.m. and I went to work at 4:30 on Monday. And my work was very tied to my mom. She was a driving influence behind it. It was about the company is called Ned. We've since sold it, but it's Natural Remedies, and it exists to help people heal and thrive through the powers of the natural world. And when my mom had her battle with breast cancer, she did not do chemo or radiation, and instead was looking for a holistic approach. And I developed a passion for that, and ended up creating a company that developed wholly natural remedies. And so my mom was very much a part of that business, not in a physical way, but in a spiritual way. And I showed up at bright and early that next Monday, and I was determined to do that work even more. So that was helpful. Um, the other thing was my mom, when she was sick and going through chemo, she used to try to walk 10 loops around my driveway. It was about it's exactly zero point 0.6 of a mile, and that was her workout. And I was with her when she passed, holding her hand, looking into her face. Her eyes were closed, but it was the hardest thing I've ever done, which was to say, "It's okay, Mama, you can go. I I want you to go so that you're no longer in this pain." And that just felt so wrong on so many levels, um, and yet it was the right thing. And when she passed, um, I screamed "no" as loud as I could, and then my family gathered around, and then I went out and I walked her laps. Uh, and on the 10th lap, this massive harvest moon, it was October 2nd, this brilliant, bright, full moon came rising up over the mountain behind our house. And it was just such a blessing, another gift from my mom. And ever since then, I've been able to see her every night in the moon. And it's so wonderful to have a reminder like that, something in nature. that's there for you that's constant, and yet it changes every night. And so I see her every single night, and I go out every night. It's what I do before going to bed. I go and I look up at the moon. I say, "Good night, Mama. You're looking really beautiful tonight." And I smile. And, it's just a really nice moment for me. I know I'm crying right now, but it's always with joy and happiness. And I laugh, and I might tell her a little funny thing that happened. She and I used to just love laughing together, and we'd send each other really funny memes, like goat memes, and we used to get laughing together in the most inappropriate places, like church and my sister's recital. Like that kind of laughing that you're just, it's so wrong, but you can't stop. So, um, after a week, I would come home from work and I would just cry in the shower, and that was how I was grieving. Um, and after a week, that stopped, and I realized my mom doesn't want me to be this sad, and she really didn't. She wanted me to laugh and be happy and be me and continue to be a good father and husband and friend and brother. And so I stopped. It was still there, but it really shifted then. Um, and then I'd go out and I'd look at the moon and I would just smile, and I would imagine her in heaven or wherever she was, with new legs and a fresh body, just run. She was a big runner, like I said, just running with joy and ease and no stiffness, like just having the time of her life. And there with her brother and her parents, and just patiently, very patiently waiting for my sisters and I to arrive. Um, and it gives me a lot of joy to think about that. She was in tremendous pain, and I'm grateful she no longer is. Um, she was only 67, and it's way too young. But it was her hand, and yeah, I miss her.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing those inside moments, the lapse, looking at the moon, telling your stories, and the emotion behind all of it. It's it's definitely welcome here. So, putting the emotions on a shelf for a second, typically there are some logistics that go on immediately after, right when those emotions are hitting you the hardest. And so, what, like financially and logistically, what role did you take on, and who were the other, characters that maybe supported you or played a role in as well?
Yeah. Um, well, my three sisters, or I have three sisters. My two full sisters, Lauren and Rory. Lauren and Rory. They were very helpful, and I would say we kind of divvied up responsibilities. Um, I took care of the cremation. I think we all decided that's what she probably would have wanted, and that was very hard to do. Um, my sister Lauren took care of the memorial. It was beautiful, and my mom was very much a global citizen, and it was during COVID, and so it was a Zoom kind of deal. But amazing people from around the world showed up, and I mean amazing people. Um, yeah, my sister Rory managed some of the financial elements. Um, my mom didn't leave a lot. She was always focused on the work, not the money. Um, and work had been tough for her for a while. So there wasn't much to, there wasn't widespread funds all over the place, um, and or even a home to sort out. I would say it was probably about as easy as it gets. My sisters and I kind of gathered my mom's things, and we just split them evenly. We knew there was no arguing, or there was um, no animosity anywhere. It was just a sad thing, but a necessary thing. And honestly, it was probably about as easy as it gets from a logistics standpoint, but from a spiritual standpoint, because of the lack of communication, it was very difficult. I didn't know. I still don't know if there's some, pool of money somewhere. Um, I don't know that cremate. I still have a lot of my mom's ashes, because I'm sort of spreading them in different places, Cambridge, Massachusetts, and Colorado, and Chicago. I'm waiting to get to Rome to bring some there. Um, I don't know if she'd want to be in any of those places or even care at all. So
So it sounds like, um, there was your mom created a culture in your family that there was a lot symbiotic relationships, and you all were able to work together to divvy up tasks and responsibilities. So it wasn't a burden to any one person, but instead, everybody got played a role in honoring her legacy.
yeah, definitely. And my sister Rory, who lives in Kilkenny, Ireland, has really done an amazing job. Um, she had a full service. My mom is buried in the cemetery there. Her ashes. A very full service, an obituary in the paper, a headstone. There's a she planted an apple tree in their yard. Um, she's she For her it was the most difficult. Um, I think part of that is because Rory lives in Ireland, and she wasn't with my mom for the last 2 years of her life, and she didn't get as much time as I did, where my mom lived, and then my sister who lives half an hour away, and I think that is a big factor in our grief. Um, when we're able to spend more time in the teepee with the person, then it feels more natural. We didn't evolve living on other continents. Um, and it just feels strange in the soul when you don't see a parent or a loved one um, as much at the end of their life. Yeah. When we get that call that says, hey, you got to come home, um, if we're not already home, I think we're in for a really hard go of it.
Process. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
So we did talk a little bit before this, and we talked about, well, and where was your mom working before, that time that she wasn't, that she
Yeah.
didn't, yeah.
Yeah, she worked in Ras Al Khaimah, which is a province in the UAE, United Arab Emirates. She taught at the University of Ras Al Khaimah, where she started the Run Club, and
That's cool.
yeah, and she was there. That's where she worked.
I love that she focused, on the work and not the money. And I think it sounds like in the way you process, you were focused on the emotions, and unfortunately, you didn't have, you know money and a pile of money under her mattress or anything like that, but
Mm-hmm.
there were some intricacies. So you mentioned a couple businesses, or a business and a student loan.
Mm.
What was it like navigating that?
Yeah. Um, you know, uh, yeah, when someone passes, you need to take care of their affairs. My mom had an outstanding student loan. I had to send in her death certificate and fill out the paperwork, and I did that. And then 3 years later, I started getting notices again that said, "Hi, Wynn, you still owe this money." And I haven't been able to bring myself to go through the 15 minutes it might take to resend the death certificate and the fill out the paperwork. And it's I'm a visionary entrepreneur. Doing that sort of work is just like it, it's the last sort of thing I ever want to do. And then when it's digging up the certificate of death, and I have some blockages around that. So, but it can be frustrating. That was all taken care of, and now I got to do it again. Um, and it's just this bi-monthly reminder that I get these letters in the mail. I should take care of it, Justin. In fact, I'm going to now that I talk about it. But yeah, it could be smoother.
Yeah. In my experience, there's an element of when you're going through all these logistics, especially with my dad, when we were closing out his estate finally after 5 years, it was like, wait, that was my connection to my dad. And so, now like this is what my connection looks like. I wish it was a more healthy, and it has transformed into a more healthy connection. We host a charity golf tournament every year for him, and I have a picture next to my desk, and, a number of other things. But, sometimes there is a block, or, that piece of mail or that email is just frustrating and digging up the death certificate is frustrating. And you're not alone in that, not wanting to tackle that task or not wanting to have to look at that morbid death certificate document.
Yeah, yeah. You would think it could be easier, and I'm sure it could be, but there's another business idea for somebody.
That's my future business idea. Yeah, how do we make this easier?
Yeah, yeah. One of the things that helped me in the process too, and really what made me an evangelist, really believe in the work of inspiring people to go and have the conversations, was the book Being Mortal by Dr. Atul Gawande. And just a really wonderful book, that shows what happens when we do have those conversations. And it's not about that. It's about how in Western society we keep people alive way past um, a, a, what's the word, like a good standard of living, or I'm blanking because I got a lot of emotions running through me. But yeah, we keep people living way longer than um, their body and mind want to, and it can become very ungracious or ungraceful
Potentially,
rather.
yeah. Or I haven't read the book. I will link it in the show notes for those that want to read it. But, potentially self-serving. I'm keeping this person here for me and not for them because
Oh
their
yeah,
standard of living isn't
oh
up to
yeah.
the up to standards.
That's the thing, and it's about not wanting to let go, and I fully understand that.
Mm.
But there it is, the quality of life. Um, Quality of life is not there, and it's um, it's a wonderful book, but it also talks about how when we have those conversations about death, our own death, and we share those with our loved ones, and even with the hospital. There's a hospital in Wisconsin where even if you come in with a broken finger, the paperwork that you fill out is, here's what I want in case of death. I would like to be cremated. I would like my money to go to my daughter. And when we share those things, we actually feel much better because it's normal and natural. And the stats in that hospital in Wisconsin are through the roof. So it's been 4.5 years since I read the book. I'm not going to try to regurgitate those, but highly recommend that book for anyone who loves anyone. Again, it's not about your elderly parents who they're 85 and it's inevitable within this decade. Um, it's for the person who has anyone that they love.
Yeah. Anyone who loves anyone. More likely than not, that's going to be all of our listeners.
That's what I'm saying.
This podcast is filled with love. So, looking at it, like having navigated through the last 5 years, how has this experience changed your approach to life, to planning, to work? How has the experience of losing your mom, changed the way you live?
Yeah. You asked, what would I have liked to have talked to my mom about? I realized that there's so much, and I had a lot of opportunities, and yet I wasn't present in those moments. And I became a lot more present um, because I would give anything to have 10 minutes back. And so, just how valuable, how precious those moments are with our loved ones has, that's changed my life. It's changed those who I love, their lives, my daughter, my wife, my sisters, my friends, and I've become a lot more present. On my birthday last May, I turned 46, and I thought to myself, my God, mom was 67. Do I really only have 21 more years? It's possible. Might even have less. What am I going to do with those 21 years? And it has really spurred me to stop playing small, stop looking for permission, and to go and do the thing I'm truly meant to do. And it's that has given me a tremendous amount of power and focus and, again, permission. So many of us feel like we're lacking permission from ourselves. And I've just said, F it, I have permission now. So she's given me presence. Well, yeah, presence. The experience has given me presence, and it's given me permission, among many other things.
And so you were already an entrepreneur working on NED, correct? Natural solutions. And you wanted to go bigger. Stop playing small. And there are so many. I've said this in the past, but there's a positive correlation between a realization of this is not the life that I want to live after grief or after loss, and realizing that this isn't truly what I'm meant to be doing. So, how do people figure out what they're meant to be doing, and what happened for you?
Yeah. Well, it was a surrendering that happened for me. And it was also a simplification and a stripping away. So many of us think that growth comes through addition, reading more books, hearing more talks, listening to more podcasts. Um, yes, in some ways, but real growth, a lot of growth can be accelerated through simplification and the stripping away of, like I talked about in the Death Lodge, the things that don't serve us, um, and really getting down to the essence of things. And the cool thing is that we already have the answers, and they're buried deep within us, and there are hidden treasures. And as Elizabeth Gilbert, the woman who wrote Eat, Pray, Love and Big Magic, one of my favorite authors, she talks about courage, and she talks about how we all have these buried treasures, and they're hidden deep within us. And if we sign up to go on the hunt to uncover those treasures, we're signing up for an enchanted life. And I love that word enchanted because it means to me that there's this, like, these winks from above, the universe, the wind at your back, the doors being opened. And yeah, so for me it was about getting back into nature, and in a big way. And I went and I climbed Denali, the mountain up in Alaska. It's a 3 week, can be a 3 week process. So I spent a lot of time in just snow and sky and rock, but mostly snow. and, um, and that was a pivotal time in my life where I realized, I'm ready to surrender to the thing in my life that I've really always known I've been here to do, but have been afraid to do it because I haven't given myself permission. I got really close on my last business about helping people heal and thrive through the powers of the natural world. That was our mission statement. It continues to be for myself, but I'm doing it in a much more authentic, Ret way. And that is not through products sold online for the most part. Um, Wonderful, high quality products with a lot of intention behind them, but still at arm's length. I'm doing it now one on one with people and in small groups, um, and and I'm leading rites of passage, thresholds, moving transition from this part of our lives into the next part of our lives, whether that's through grief, through loss, or through realization that we are here for more and it's time to go start that business, or maybe it's time to go have that difficult conversation. And so I'm helping people through those thresholds of life. And we're all going to step through them. It's just a matter of, do we do it consciously? And the intention we can bring to those can be really powerful. Um, and it is about permission. It's about surrendering to what it is that we're here for. And I believe we all have something we're here for. And it's about clearing the way to see that through clarity. Nature is very helpful. Silence, solitude, and a really beautiful intentional container.
Yeah. So what does an actual vision quest look like? This sounds amazing. It sounds like, especially for someone who's experienced loss, but really everybody, being in nature, understanding that we have the answers. They're buried deep inside of us. We just have to get them out in some way. And, that way, especially with, cell phones and technology nowadays, it's not easy. So what do these rites of passage look like for someone who's interested?
Yeah, I really, there's so many different wonderful, beautiful rites of passage. We did one for my daughter moving from 12 to 13. And it was very, very sweet and cute and funny, and we didn't take it too seriously. Um, but a vision quest is the one I really like to focus on because I've seen the biggest impact there. Um, each time in my life in transition, I've gone instinctually to nature, um, and to solitude and to silence and to a stripping away of things, of layers until you get down to what really matters to you. And yeah, man, we're surrounded by urgent, unimportant things constantly. And it's rare that we get to focus on the unurgent and important things. And and so that's what the Vision Quest is. It's typically 3 or 4 days fasting in the wilderness. Fasting not because it's trying to make it more difficult, but just trying to remove all distractions. And food. We think about food all the time. Um, when's our next meal? What should we have? Oh, that was a good meal. What should I have next? And 3+ times per day, we're distracted by our food, and I love food, but we can all survive 3 days without food. We can survive 10 times that and even more. So and when people return from the Vision Quest, it's not the fasting that was difficult. People go into that being the biggest fear, but it's really it's peeling away the onion and getting deep and allowing that knowing to spring forth. Because again, we all have the knowing. We did when we were children. We knew exactly what we needed, and we didn't let anybody on the entire airplane get away with not knowing that we needed something. And there was no shame around that. And then we built shame and layers and plaque, and it's just about removing that plaque. And nature will do that for you. The right setting will do that for you, and solitude and silence and intention. And this is what people across cultures throughout time have done. And it's from Africa and South America and North America and Europe and Australia. Every place has a practice like this. Every religion has a practice like this. And it's just a remembering of this ancient medicine, that we've gotten away from. And the reason why it worked across millennia is because it works. And we're constantly trying to outsmart ourselves through um, synthesized processes and pharmaceuticals. And it's what Ned was about too. It was about getting back to the natural remedies.
And I think grief leads to a lot of, no doctor or anything, but a lot of different emotions, anxieties, um, and there are a lot of non-natural remedies. So, what may a vision quest help someone who's grieving? How may it help someone who's grieving heal?
Yeah, it's a beautiful question. Um, I wouldn't recommend leaving the deathbed and going on a vision quest. Um, I recommend being around loved ones and family. And having memorial and ceremony, and that's the way we evolved. That's how that works, and that's why those practices still exist. But when the time is right, and it feels like solitude could be the answer, then I think it can unlock a lot of our potential through that clarity. And especially around death, we have that reminder that this is not, we are not immortal. And we have one shot. We might have another, but we don't know that. Um, but we have one shot, and we're here for greatness. Each one of us is here for greatness. Um, and so, if we're not already living that, then the Vision Quest can help us see what that looks like and give us the permission to go and be that.
Yeah. And it sounds like for you personally, it helped you transition from the work that you were doing, which had passion and meaning behind it, to doing it the Ret way, which I love that
Mm.
you said.
Yeah, yeah. Which to me means authentic, which is a word that gets batted around, but when it comes to ourselves doing what's authentically us, it's pretty rare. It's pretty rare. So many of us have fear, imposter syndrome, and upper limiting, and all these shoulds that have been heaped upon us since we were crying on the airplane and we were told to shush. And these shoulds get in the way of so much, and we should all over ourselves and others all the time. And and it's about stripping away those, and death and the reminder that life is short can really help get past those shoulds. It's really helped me. I'm not willing to to play small any longer. I'm not willing to be inauthentic in any way. It's um it's just a waste of time, and it's not giving the universe or God credit. They put us here to do something, and when we don't fulfill that, it feels unhealthy. And we can actually be the one on the deathbed if we don't live into our purpose. A friend of mine, Travis Luther, went and studied. You should have him on the show, actually. Travis would be an amazing guest. Travis's father passed away at an early age for Travis. He wanted to examine his relationship with death and grief 20 years later, and he went and spent a year interviewing people on their deathbeds. He realized that one of the reasons why we can get sick is by lying to ourselves. And he was interviewing people who had been doctors and lawyers and engineers, and they told him, Travis, I always wanted to be a teacher or an artist or a dancer. And I lied to myself for 40 years. Every single day I woke up and I put on the stethoscope. And I was supposed to put on a smock and hold a paintbrush. And the body doesn't know the difference between the truth and a lie. And they were getting sick because they were lying to themselves. Bruce Lee has one of my favorite quotes about this. And he says, don't speak negatively about yourself, even as a joke. Your body doesn't know the difference. Words are energy and cast spells. That's why it's called spelling. Change the way you speak about yourself, and you can change your life.
Wow. I also think one of his quotes that I was also looking up on the side is, I'm not in this world to live up to your expectations. You're in this world to live up to mine. Or
Mm,
you're not in this world to live up to mine.
mm. Yeah, and expectations are just shoulds. And we can get rid of those shoulds, and my God, it feels good. It feels so liberating and beautiful, and we become pure potentiality, unlimited.
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to put you in a situation. If someone, has experienced a loss, they feel alone, and they also feel stuck with where they are and not knowing where they want to be. What's one step, thought, exercise that you think they could or should do? Or what advice would you give that person?
Well, again, we have all the knowing already in us. And it's about just getting to the bottom of it, stripping away the layers. And the land, nature can help with that. Getting back to land, to nature, to connection, whether that's the mountains or the desert or the sea, going to the place where your heart feels best, and seeing the abundance in nature, how everything gets done through so much abundance. The number of seeds that get just eaten and turned into soil that never become the plant. There's so much abundance, and all you have to do is look up at the stars in a clear sky. So my advice, which is always the same, which is get in tune with nature, reconnect with it, and you'll reconnect with yourself.
And I love the look up at the stars and look up at the moon for you and for others. It's powerful.
Yes, and I don't love giving advice, but one advice that I've given to people who've lost people since my mom passed has been to find something in nature that's solid and steady and there for you. And let that become an embodiment of that person you lost. For me, it's the moon.
Thank you. We typically end with, words of wisdom, and you took the words and the wisdom right out of my mouth. So that's amazing. Ret, how can people find you?
Thanks, Justin. My website is my name, rettaylor.com. It's RET Taylor.com. And I'm also on Instagram, Ret Taylor _. I'm on LinkedIn. There's not many Ret Taylors. You'll find me there. And that would be the best way. I'm more than happy to connect with people. Talking really helps. And yeah, I hope everybody talks with everyone that they love.
Are there any other final thoughts or lessons you want to leave our audience with?
Just gratitude for you, Justin, and what you're doing. Again, it is just so necessary, needed, helpful, and human. And tremendous gratitude to you for the work that you're doing here.
Thank you, Ret. This has been an incredible episode. I think I've been more present in this episode than I have in a couple weeks past. So I appreciate you. I appreciate this conversation, and Currency of Grief family, I appreciate you for tuning in to this episode of the Currency of Grief with Ret Taylor. Don't forget, it's a great day to have a great day. So go have a great day, and we'll see you next time. Thank you for joining me on this episode of the Currency of Grief podcast. My hope is that today's conversation brought you clarity, comfort, and even a spark to start those difficult but necessary conversations in your own life. If you found this episode helpful, it would mean the world to me if you would share it with one other person who you feel this podcast could impact. And please, take a moment to leave us a 5-star review. Your review will help us reach more people who need this resource. Remember, the best time to talk about death and money was yesterday. The second best time is now. Until next time, I'm Justin Weidenfeld, your Grief Financial Officer, and this has been the Currency of Grief podcast.